A very good afternoon to one and all present here. I would now like to take the privilege to introduce our next guest of honor, Professor Dr. V. Balkista Reddy, sir. Having over 15 years of experience in the fields of teaching and research and a keen inclination towards international law since the very beginning, Sir is presently a professor of international law and the coordinator of the M.K. Nambiar Sark Law Center. He is also the registrar at Nalsar University of Law and the head for the Center of Air and Space Law at Nalsar University of Law, Hyderabad. In addition, Professor Dr. Balkishta Reddy sir has participated in several seminars, including the workshop on international trade and Doha Round, and presented numerous papers on subjects such as the role and functions of the United Nations Secretary General and India as an emerging space power, present and future challenges, to name just a few. Sir has also considerably contributed to a number of internationally acclaimed literary works, such as his work on recent trends in international space law and policy. As the coordinator of the M.K. Nambiar Sark Law Center, Sir has organized workshops, published books and newsletters, and conducted various national and international conferences, including the 10th, 12th, and 14th editions of the South Asian Teaching Session on International Humanitarian Law. Under his honorable guidance, the Center for Air and Space Law was established at Nalsar University of Law, Hyderabad in 2005, which has till date organized numerous national and international conferences, workshops, and has also launched a PG diploma course. Sir has also introduced the master's level course on international trade and business law at Nalsar University of Law, Hyderabad. At present, Professor Dr. V. Balakishta Reddy sir is a visiting faculty at different universities and an active member of institutions, including the Indian Society of International Law. On that note, it is indeed a privilege to have an international law expert of such knowledgeable standing with us for today's event. I would now humbly request you, sir, to please share a few words with us.
Thank you, Manshika. Thank you for a nice introduction. So, good afternoon to one and all. First, let me congratulate CMR and Legal Studies Division for coming out with International Legal Studies Center. And I thank because you are invited me to share some of my thoughts with you all. So, good afternoon, one and all. So, Professor Egde sir spoke about at length about international law professors and international lawyers in India and various institutions across the India which are imparting the international law education. So, but I will focus more into the present and future because you all know that India is going to play important role in the contemporary and future international relations. Being a 1.3 or now I can say 1.4 billion population, are the existing centers, are the existing people who are expert. I don't say expert, but people who are familiarized with international law enough to catering the global needs of the 21st century, which India is going to play. I don't know. I am doubtful. I can say that till recently, though I don't dispute with Professor Egde, but we neglected international law at large. So even to some extent, even international law was not taught as a complete subject. Even we included part of international law with human rights, all those. So that is where I said India neglected. Of course, we are paying for that. Professor Egde, Professor Subramania again is not only a teacher of international law, but he was a practitioner of international law. So India, but anyhow, friends, you know that when we talk about international relations, international law, international relations was dominated in the 19th century by European countries, and 20th century American continent, and 21st century it is the Asian century or like countries like India and China. We are going to play a major role, whether accept or not. That's the so in this context actually. 21st century, if I say international relations, Indian context, so India has had to play important role. To that extent, the existing institutions and we as a teachers or students of international law are not sufficient, I can say that. So, of course, today, international law playing important role, significant role in the present international relations, and it is going to play future. Why I'm telling is that just now I told I told the 21st century is Asian century or Indian century, because India being a youth country of the world, youngest country of the world, and I can say that more than 65% of the global population is Indian population is below 35 years. So here education is important, human resources important. So when I say education in general and particularly legal education and particularly legal education, again we have to focus on international legal education, I can say. So today we have to look what India requires is immaterial, what global society needs. So that context, I think we have to produce, we had to prepare, produce many international lawyers in the years to come. So, and today, again, the scope of international law is immense. International law is, everywhere, anywhere. If you say from deep seabed to outer space, you name any area, we can tell that, international law is involved. I don't think any, when I say deep seabed, Professor Egde was mentioning about the law of the sea, regulation of law of sea, all those, UNCLOS and other things to land, sea, and air, outer space. All these are all areas which have a lot of impact on international relations. India is, no exception. And latest, one thing I want to tell you this context is we should not look at international law par with domestic law. So international law has a, because we are starting a center, and just I want to speak few minutes about the limitations of international law. So we should not, compare international law with domestic law, because domestic law is regulated by institutional mechanism like legislature to legislate, executive to implement, judiciary to interpret. Do we have these institutional backup in international law? Is there any supranational authority in international law? That is where whole problem comes. And friends, again, we are all law abiding citizens, law students. Normally, law is, above everybody. Okay, any law you take above everybody. But unfortunately, if you look at international law between states, okay, that to what kind of states? Sovereign states. The moment when you say sovereignty, everything gone. I am a sovereign, who are you to? So that is the major challenge which we are facing, or generally when we teach or when we practice international law. These are the issues we have to keep. That's why when we discuss issues, when we teach international law, when we practice international law, when we advise international law, we need to have a different approaches, different mechanisms. So what do you mean by that? So different approaches, I mean that, international law operates on the basis of cooperation, coordination, consensus, convincing. These are all, approaches. For example, in domestic, you have, like you can, apply danda. So there is a, police, courts, contempt, all these. But these things are not there. If any violation of law happens, so how to deal with that? If domestic law, no problem, our police, our courts take care. But how about international law? It's a big challenge. That's where I was just mentioning about we need to understand in a different context, different conditions. So cooperation. And most of the international relations, international law today operates on the basis of cooperation. Convincing is important. You have to convince that if you are party to X treaty, Y treaty, your country will get benefit. That is the thing. Convincing and cooperation, coordination, convincing, all these are all new approaches which have to be part of. And I'm suggesting, all since students are there, please don't look at it, don't compare domestic law with international law. That is the one point I would like to. And of course, when I say international law, recent past, lot of developments. One thing I want to mention here is globalization. Today, international law is everywhere and it is impacting everybody. All the states, whether you are rich or poor, small or big, or communist or capitalist, whatever the ideology, whatever the economic background you have, but international law is impacting on all countries and everybody. So that is the scope, that is the importance of international law, which assumed in recent past, particularly I can say 21st century international law. So here one important governance thing happened in the last 20-30 years because of globalization. Globalization, its impact on the global governance or international law, if you look at, of course, globalization, global connections, global interdependence, all these are there. But globalization has done good and bad Particularly globalization has done wonderful. Global problems never solved, but globalization has done a lot. And also globalization posed challenges in the governance structure, global governance, international relations. What kind of challenges? Why I'm saying this challenge? Yes, because today, if you look at friends, I'm talking about international again. Two-thirds of the global society is composed of the third world countries. Is it that globalization really beneficial to the majority of the world population or the countries? Again, the question. No. Lot of challenges we as a developing countries are facing, particularly new governance structures which are happening in the international relations. When I say new governance, for example, the impact of globalization, like Professor Egde was mentioning about sovereignty. Yes, definitely sovereignty is important, but today sovereignty is changing its notions. Earlier countries, people used to give importance to the political sovereignty, but today that is shifted. Why? Of course, most of the countries got independence, pre-1947, colonialism like India. But today, most of the countries in the world got, independent. That's why the shift is from political to economic sovereignty. When I say economic sovereignty, development is important. Today, I always say in practical thing, all isms have gone. Socialism, communalism, capitalism, all isms have gone. Today, people believe, countries believe in international relations. Only one ism. What is that? Materialism, developmentalism. Today, we have to develop. In this process, lot of compromises are happening. That is the point. What I want to highlight here is that countries are compromised for sake of development, economic, whatever. So shift from political to economic sovereignty is happening, and which impacted last 30-40 years in the governance structure. Of course, not only that, but other important development which happened in international relations recent past, again part of that, independent sovereign states to interdependence. Today, no more independence sovereign state. Today, interdependency is the order of the day. How mighty you are, how powerful you are, how big you are, it won't matter. You have to depend on other countries. What Aristotle said long back, 3rd century BC, man is a social animal. But friends, I am telling you today, countries are social beings. You have to depend on other countries. That is where the international law assumes a lot of importance. But mind you, the moment when any country or any part of any international treaty, international operates, I have to begin, saying that consent based. Consent is important. What kind of consent? Voluntary consent. Why voluntary consent? Because we are dealing with the sovereign states. Sovereign states have to give voluntary consent. So consent is important. How states give consent? Through signing, ratifying, exchange of all these, modus operandi of giving consent. So consent is important, and global governance particularly consent is given, and recently independence to interdependence. All these countries are accepting. One more development, if you look at governance, I'm talking about international law, international relations. So role of states are changing from lawmaker to law taker. This is very important point for international law. What do you mean by states? Role of states are changing from lawmaker to law taker. Are we not making law? What is the job of our parliament? Yes, definitely we are making law, but there is a lot of change. So lawmaker to law taker means most of the law today, what is happening in India, most of the countries I'm referring is, we are taking from international treaties. Being India is a party to hundreds and thousands of treaties. So we are accepting, we are taking, and we are enforcing. So these are certain developments which are happening in international relations. And of course, India is being a, again I said, important country. So India is now practicing all these things. So earlier we used to regulate a lot. Today no more regulation. Dilution is there. Today we are facilitating. That's why I always say that the role of states, countries are changing from regulator to facilitators. Best example we can give is again FDI, foreign direct investments, and other things. You come invest, I'll give you all these things. That is what it is happening. These are the changes which are happening in international relations. I can say that 30-40 years, and these have a lot of impact on international governance, international relations. I can say international law. So these are certain things we have to keep in mind. Okay, that is the one point I just want to highlight. Of course, other point I would like to mention is that how international law is getting importance in the Indian context, particularly. If you look at the recent judgments pronounced by our judiciary, whether it's the Supreme Court of India or high courts, other courts. Lot of international component is there. They are mentioning international treaties, international customary practices, all those in their pronouncements. That is the other change we are witnessing, we are seeing. So though India is a sovereign country, India is a this thing, but India is now practicing lot of international law, not only in the political context, but even judiciary is not afford to ignore international law. That is the point I want to make. I will make. Particularly when we look at Professor Egde was mentioning about, though I mentioned limitation. One limitation of international law is that again does not have its own mission. It has to depend on the countries. Okay, you have come out with good international law principles. If no takers, there is no point at all. That's why today one important aspect we have to look at that domestic implementation. How countries accept, how countries actually implement. So that is the, of course, India being again an emerging nation or state, and we are very actually in many aspects of international law. When we talk about the domestic implementation, we can say that though India practice international law, not only today part of the globalization, earlier also, but recent past mostly we are following international law, particularly start with the Indian Constitution. So if you look at in India and international law, where sir was mentioning other things, but one important thing we have to lead that how India impart its international to practice international treaties is one we can start discussion on the Indian Constitution. Though Indian Constitution has more than 400 articles, I'm not talking about, but there are certain articles which are relevant to implementation of international law. Particularly if you look at Article 51, the state shall endeavor for promotion of international peace and security. It has to be part of the international treaties and dispute settlement, like that. Then role of executive making and implementing international treaties based on Article 53, 73, 77. But major role, being a parliamentary form of government, ultimate authority lies with the people or parliament. So parliament has ultimate power to make and implementing international treaties based on Article 245, 246, 253, 248 residuary powers. If anything is not there, you all know that list. So these are certain things which India part of the domestic implementation we take, and part of the again judiciary. I just mentioned that Indian Supreme Court of India, High Courts, all these parts. So one last thing I want to just highlight, of course, Professor Egde mentioning law schools and various other permanent colleges like CMR, they are also teaching and practicing international law. I want to just highlight one thing. Recently, 2 years back, NALSAR hosted an important conference, international law again, that's called IDI, Institute Goodright International Law, Institute of International Law. This organization started way back in 1873. Okay, it got Nobel Peace Prize in 1904, first Peace Nobel Prize in 1904. And normally they used to, how they neglect, or how India neglect, I'm giving other example. They used to hold conferences and part of the codification of international law, development of international law. So mostly every 2 years they used to hold conferences in Europe, America, all. It never happened. So second time happened in like India. First time in Asia, in Tokyo, and second time in India, where NALSAR hosted. I can happily to share with you that 100 eminent lawyers, including 5 sitting judges of International Court of Justice and other retired judges from various tribunals, all those who were here participated, and they drafted. We practically witnessed how drafting of international law, codification of international law happens. Most of the students and other faculties from across the country also participated. So we hosted that in 2017, where we got an opportunity to see practically, and also an opportunity to appreciate our own work. Like India means people, third world country, all those. But after coming here, they visited other places also. But they appreciated that India has good talent of international, because they also gave lectures to our faculty and students, all those. So those were part of again our website also. So this kind of initiatives we are taking, but still I can say that we have to go a long way. We have to do a long way. So this is the institution which in 150 years first time it happened, that in India. So Nalsar hosted India. These kind of things, encourages us that we have to be part of the global society. So these are certain things. I think we, as a students of, again, legacy from International Legal Studies, as a School of International Studies, JNU, whether it's Subramanian sir or Hegde sir, of course, he is there, but other colleagues also, we are trying our best to promote international law, but still we have to go a long way. That much I can tell you. And again, once again, I want to congratulate taking this kind of initiative by CMR, and it is the need of the hour. I don't want to put in all the, but I can tell in one sentence that definitely, sir, your initiative is going a long way. It has to go a long way, and students are going to get benefit with that. So I think I wish once again, all the best for your future endeavors under your leadership, and CMR once again. Thank you everyone for listening me. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Thanks.
Thank you so much, sir. It's very kind of you for acquainting us with those wise, motivating words, which definitely enlightened us and clarified this mysterious topic to major extent. With